करती हूँ और बजट के बारे में और ज़्यादा जानकारी देती हुई, लेकिन हम सीधे चलेंगे अपनी सहयोगी नयनतारा राय के पास जो बातचीत कर रही हैं केंद्रीय मंत्री पीयूष गोयल के साथ। आइए सुनते हैं।
इन्वेस्टमेंट टुगेदर एक्सपीडाइटिंग इंडियाज डेवलपमेंट। तो मैं समझता हूँ एक प्रकार से आधुनिक भारत की और भविष्य की आधारशिला इस बजट ने रखी है।
Mr. Goyal, this budget is also coming against the backdrop of global uncertainty. We don't know how fast and how quickly, for example, central banks around the world will be increasing interest rates, beginning with the United States. Back home as well, inflation has become an area of concern. I hope you will appreciate I'm playing devil's advocate here. Has enough been done to boost consumption, to manage inflation? Because जो अगर हम आजकल की महंगाई देखेंगे, वॉलेट पे तो प्रेशर है।
आज महंगाई पूरे विश्व में देखने को मिलती है। यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका की आज की महंगाई शायद कहते हैं 40-50 साल में सबसे अधिक है। ये दुनिया भर में कमोडिटी प्राइसेस और फूड प्रोडक्ट्स पे महंगाई का एक बड़ी संकट देखने को मिल रहा है। लेकिन अगर आप भारत की स्थिति देखें तो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी लगातार इस विषय को संभाले हुए हैं। आप देखेंगे तो भारत में हमारे किसानों ने बहुत अच्छा उत्पादन करने से लगभग फूड स्टफ्स की महंगाई नहीं होने दी। आज भारत में चाहे वो सब्जियां हो, चाहे वो अनाज चावल वगैरह हो, दालों में भी, जिसमें विश्व भर में बहुत महंगाई चल रही है, दालों में भी लगभग भारत में पिछले एक वर्ष में संतुलन बना रहा है, प्राइसेस ज्यादा बढ़े नहीं। एक पूरे देश की जो ताकत लगी है हमारे किसानी क्षेत्र में खास तौर पे, उसने भारत को एक प्रकार से विश्व का फूड बास्केट बना दिया। आज हम भारत से लगभग 3-3.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए का फूड प्रोडक्शन और मरीन प्रोडक्शन एक्सपोर्ट करने जा रहे हैं। विल बी अमंग्स द टॉप 10 एक्सपोर्टर्स ऑफ एग्री एंड एनिमल हस्बेंड्री प्रोडक्ट्स। So I think we have been able to reasonably keep a control on inflation in the country, but there can be no doubt that this is an international global problem that all countries in the world are facing.
In that sense, would you say this was a missed opportunity to maybe rein in inflation? Maybe, duty cuts on palm oil, crude oil. This was, for example, a suggestion by industry bodies. And, you even had the Hindustan Unilever chairman talking about it.
Incidentally, in the last 5 or 6 months, we have continuously been reducing the import duties on various oils. So I'm sure the Hindustan Unilever chairman also is aware of it. We have continuously been reducing the duties on palm oil, on crude palm oil, on refined palm oil. However, the overall production in Indonesia, Malaysia, which are our main suppliers, have also been lower. Indonesia has gone in for a massive biodiesel or biofuel policy in which they are diverting their palm oil, and therefore they are imposing export taxes. So while we reduce the taxes significantly, they increase the export taxes. So to that extent, the entire benefit was not available for us. But on the part of the government, we've been on a continuous tax cutting spree on import duties on oil.
We're at an all-time high. In 2020, 2021, we're talking about returns of 40% plus. While this is a government that has privatized Air India, there are, quarters that believe that could it have been done faster when we talk about privatization and disinvestment. BPCL hasn't happened. Even with the markets where they are at, we're seeing a target of 65,000 crores. Isn't that conservative?
Madam, it is very easy to make faster expectations for disinvestment. But disinvestment is a very complicated process. It involves several stakeholders. It involves a compilation of a lot of data. And in public sector undertakings, particularly Air India was a very complicated disinvestment with a historical baggage of several years, different type of asset classes which had to be segregated between what will be disinvested, what will remain with the government. And in the midst of the disinvestment, at its peak, COVID came in. And with COVID coming in, you know what the aviation sector went through. So I think despite COVID having been at its worst for the last 2 years, I think I must compliment the Honorable Finance Minister, our colleague, the Civil Aviation Minister, and both the teams for having successfully disinvested Air India despite such trying times. I'm sure they are working very aggressively on several other proposals which are on the table. The Honorable Finance Minister today announced the successful disinvestment of Neelachal Ispat. It was a company set up by MMTC under my ministry. And there was no business for MMTC to be in the steel making business. So I'm really delighted that MMTC is now no more involved in the steel manufacturing business. With the disinvestment of Neelachal Ispat, a lot of funds will flow back and MMTC will become debt-free and will pave the way for closure of some of these deadwood companies which have, like MMTC, which have no business to be in business.
मिस्टर गोयल, हमारे दर्शक मेरे से बहुत गुस्सा होंगे अगर मैं आपसे एक प्रश्न ना पूछूं। वो है कि जब फिस्कल डेफिसिट बिल्कुल चेक में है, आप इतना एक्सपेंडिचर को बढ़ा भी रहे हैं, लेकिन जो ऑनेस्ट टैक्स पेयर है उनको रिवॉर्ड नहीं कर रहे हैं, और जब महंगाई भी ऊपर बढ़ रही है, क्योंकि अगर हम एनडीए सरकार के बारे में बात करें, साल पे साल बोला जाता है कि हम सैलरी क्लास को, मिडिल क्लास को रिवॉर्ड करेंगे, लेकिन वो रिवॉर्ड कब आएगा?
बहन जी, आप देखेंगे कि कुछ समय पहले ही हमने 5 लाख रुपए तक की जिनकी आय है, टैक्सेबल इनकम है, उसको पूरी तरीके से टैक्स से मुक्ति दिला दी थी। और आपको ध्यान होगा तब हमने बताया भी था कि 5 लाख टैक्सेबल इनकम यानी लगभग 7.5-8 लाख रुपए भी अगर इनकम हो और आप अपने अलग अलग बेनिफिट्स लें तो आपको 0 टैक्स पे आपका गुजारा चल सकता है। मैं समझता हूँ माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने हर वक्त मध्यम वर्ग की चिंता की है, मध्यम वर्ग के बारे में सहूलियत देने की लगातार कोशिश रही है। आज की जो परिस्थिति में हम चाहते हैं कि सरकार और निवेश करे, इसमें हमें रिसोर्स कंस्ट्रेंट ना हो, तो रिसोर्सेज को कंजर्व करना पड़ेगा। और साथ ही साथ हमने कोशिश ये करनी है कि लोगों की आमदनी बढ़े, लोगों के लिए नए रोजगार के, नए काम के अवसर मिले। तो मैं समझता हूँ इस बजट में ज्यादा फोकस इनकम ग्रोथ और ईज ऑफ लिविंग, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस, एक्सपैंडिंग द पाई के ऊपर रहा है। और कोशिश यही है कि ये जो 10 लाख करोड़ का कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट होगा सरकार द्वारा, इसी के साथ साथ हम एनकरेज करेंगे कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर डिमांड बढ़ने से प्राइवेट सेक्टर निवेश भी बढ़े, और इस बढ़ते हुए निवेश में हमारे युवा युवतियों को और रोजगार के और काम के नए अवसर मिले और देश भर में सबकी आमदनी बढ़े। ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है।
Mr. Goyal, there were 2 other big announcements. One was to do with the digital rupee, which is being called a game changer by industry, by our viewers as well. And the second one is, of course, a 30% tax on digital assets by a government that doesn't legitimize digital assets, has not recognized it, but is going to be taxing it at 30%. How will this impact innovation in Web3, which is such a buzzword these days?
Well, I think it is very, very heartening to see that the government led by Prime Minister Modi has taken a proactive, positive approach towards digital currency. And you'll appreciate that digital currency should be monitored and issued only by the Federal Bank, the Reserve Bank of India. So very rightly, the Honorable FM has announced that RBI will come up with a digital currency, which will be formal legal tender issued by the Reserve Bank of India. The other crypto assets are all asset classes which don't have sanctity or the backing of the government of India. It is privately led issuances which are private in nature and which are of an asset class. They cannot be used as digital currency, not being issued by the government. And as an asset class, just like every other asset when it is sold or purchased is taxed, these will be taxed. In this we would also like to warn innocent consumers that they have to be cautious, that they do not deal with assets which are not backed by security or not backed by proper legitimate companies.
RBI Governor Dr. Raghuram Rajan was recently on ET Now, and while he applauded the government for all that is being done for manufacturing, raised a point saying that please do not ignore services. If you look at the services sector, it's still not out of the woods, especially, the highly intensive ones like hospitality, tourism, just to name a few of them. Has enough been done for them outside of just the credit guarantee scheme?
Well, as you might be aware that we have seen in the last couple of years that as COVID recedes, we see a significant leg up, a big boost to those sectors which are related to tourism, hospitality, travel. So we had actually seen travel, domestic travel, come back to near normal. We had seen that hotels and homestays were completely chock-a-block full through the last several months before Omicron came in. So to that extent, I believe that the services sector also will have a significant bounce back. The 50,000 crores allocated specifically for the hospitality sector will give a significant support to the services side. But as we see the Omicron numbers receding, and we are already seeing that receding day by day, I think all across the world, information is that businesses are getting back to normal, coming back to pre-COVID levels. India itself is seeing a rejuvenation of travel, of hospitality, every time the COVID wave subsides. So I'm quite confident that going forward, the services sector will continue to excel, do very well, and make the nation proud. Also provide huge opportunities for our young boys and girls and our startups.
Well, I'll make this my final question, and I'm going to make it about a subject very close to your heart. In mid-January, for example, I remember you did a big event dedicated to New India. I am talking about startups. For the announcements that have come in for startups, whether it is drones or a new committee that is going to look into venture capital funding, though direct overseas listing was not permitted as yet. What's the big message out there?
Well, I think the startups have done the nation proud, and the government on its part recognizes, respects, and values their contribution to nation building. The Honorable Prime Minister recently had a very, very good interaction with the startups and got some very good suggestions from them. We continue to support them through incubators, through several financing schemes, the fund of funds schemes, the startup seed capital fund scheme, and we will continue to be engaged with them and pick up ideas from the startup world and implement them. We have a very robust startup advisory council, which meets every quarter, and it is a very longish, very detailed, very exhaustive and engaging conversation that we have with experts from the startup world, which helps us and guides us in our plans for the future. We are over 80 unicorns today. We are growing at almost a unicorn a week currently. And we do hope that in this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, where we have already seen over 40 unicorns being recognized as such, we'll probably land up with 75 odd unicorns in the country, which will truly set the benchmark for the future.
Mr. Goyal, thank you so much for giving the time to ET Now, as well as ET Now Swadesh, for your take on Union Budget 2022.